Okay, we're back. Uh, Nothing major, just my 3-year-old was chasing my 7-year-old around with a booger. I know, it's disgusting. Kids are wonderful, but sometimes they can be gross. Alright, where was I? Alright, presumably this guy's worked a long shift. He went to the bar after work, okay? And understand, workers in 1919, as we've learned, the Winnipeg General Strike lesson, and there were strikes in many cities. Workers weren't getting paid what we would call, by today's standard, a livable wage. So they could work a full-time job and still not have necessarily enough money to provide rent and groceries for their family, or barely enough. So it doesn't take long. Dad goes to the bar after work. It doesn't take him long. Shot, 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 shot. His wage is gone. He's just drank away his paycheck. It didn't take long. So he comes home intoxicated, empty-handed, empty table. The wife very justly asks, "Hey, we got to feed these kids. Where's the money?" He's drunk. Sometimes people who are drunk can be violent. Drunk people are more prone to make bad decisions, uh, and can turn to violence more quickly. It's one of the reasons why alcohol consumption can be a social problem, right? So inevitably, this led to domestic violence, hungry kids, scared wives, and the question is, well, how can we fix this? What can be done to fix this? Yeah, you could pass stronger laws protecting women from abusive husbands. But the most immediate solution they thought was, well, just take away the bar. If this guy doesn't go to a bar after work, if he can't drink away his paycheck, he comes home, he's not drunk, he's not going to be as violent. There's going to be food on the table. There's going to be less tension between man and wife, and we'll have that safer community for women and children that we want. So it was a goal of prohibition. Understand, the goals didn't weren't met, and you already know that a bit from our previous reading. You'll explore a bit more. Um, I suppose, at the time I'm posting this, you'll be able to see that there's an assignment where you're doing some formal writing, where you're going to prove that the laws failed to achieve their goals. Right, so that's a bummer. It's a lesson in history. These people had a very noble cause, very noble goals. These are good things. We all want safer communities for children and women. I mean, and men for that matter. And they were trying to sacrifice something, alcohol, to make it happen. It didn't work. The good thing about our sacrifices today, everything that we're sacrificing, the sports, the schools, the malls, the theaters. I mean, I'm excited for the NFL draft tonight. It's like the first meaningful sports thing that's happening. Is just going to be, the NFL commissioner in his basement probably on a webcam. But I'm excited. I'm starved for some sports, and I'm sure some of you are too. And all of us are sacrificing things right now. The good thing about that is we know our sacrifices are paying off. We can see in the numbers, we know it's making a positive difference in public health, our healthcare systems not being overwhelmed. So it should be a very heartening thing. It should make you feel pretty good about our sacrifices. The sad thing for the people sacrificing during Prohibition, it didn't work out, right? So there's a lesson to be learned there. When you're making sacrifices for a greater good, you have to, have certain checkpoints where you look and say, okay, is this working? Yes or no. In the case of Prohibition, it ended up not working. But there were very noble goals behind it. The idea that, as I said before, Dad goes into the bar, drinks away his wage, and in this cartoon they show the poor daughter stumbles in. The daughter's starving. She's dressed in rags. She goes into the tavern to find her dad. She's like, "Dad, everybody's laughing. My friend keeps following me around, is laughing at me because my dress is all tore up." And what a bad friend. That's a frenemy there. She just follows her around to make fun of her. Like, come on. But anyways, this poor girl's dad is spending way too much time and money in the bar. Can't afford clothes for proper clothes for his daughter, and she's being made fun of. So he when he leaves the bar in the second half of this little cartoon, the dad swears off alcohol. Actually, I can probably find the second half for you somewhere. I'm sure you're dying to see what happens to that poor little girl. He swears off alcohol, gives his wages to his wife and family, and vows never to drink again. And just things get so much better once alcohol is taken out of this guy's life. He goes, now this is propaganda, obviously, but it's not a stretch to think this could happen. If someone who is has a toxic addiction to alcohol stops drinking, good things will probably happen. His boss notices, hey, Mike. He looks like a Mike. I don't know. Hey, Mike, you're not drunk. This is great. You're doing a great job. You're getting a raise. I love this. And this was part of why they wanted prohibition, were guys like um, Henry Ford, other big industrialists. They were worried that workers were coming into work drunk and weren't doing as good of a job. And there was some truth to that. So many factory owners liked the idea of prohibition, at least for their workers. They liked the idea of their workers coming in uh, sober and staying sober, not getting drunk during the workday. So one of the goals of prohibition was to make workers more productive. Okay, and then Dad comes home, and his family grows happy and prosperous in the shining light of Father's reform. So prohibition laws were meant to make this happen, right? Because not they understood not all men were just going to give up alcohol on their own. They needed to be made to give up uh, things. Right? It's like our government today, right? But they haven't just suggested we not have big events. They've made laws. Like if you have a house party, don't have a house party with more than 5 people. You are breaking laws that they've passed right now. So the understanding was you can make suggestions to people, and some people will listen, but certain people will require laws to be made to do what needs to be done. Okay, I'm going to speed up here because I feel like I'm going on a bit too long. Second major goal, they clearly wanted to reduce crime. The the prohibition propaganda to get it passed consistently said or showed how alcohol puts people behind bars in jail. Right. So if this guy didn't drink, he wouldn't have turned to crime. So it was a goal that prohibition would lead to people living uh, living a life that didn't involve crime and wouldn't end up with them in jail. Just a preview as to proof that this failed miserably. Well, there's a video on Al Capone. Trust me, as interesting as this guy is, he's a bad dude. He's a bad dude. Did bad things to control his organized crime syndicate. You would have never heard of this guy if it weren't for prohibition. Because basically, what happened is like, oh, you're gonna make alcohol illegal. Well, guess what? People still want alcohol, and I'm gonna provide that for them. I'm a businessman. I'm just a businessman providing a product that people want, and I'm gonna make a bit of money doing it. He made a lot of money doing it. He made the equivalent of like over $1 billion in modern day, money, selling illegal alcohol. If it wasn't illegal, then he wouldn't have got that business. That business would have continued to be run by legitimate business people, not criminals. So prohibition gave a hugely profitable business, alcohol sales, to some very bad people. A lofty goal of prohibition was to improve the moral fabric of society. Right? The goal was to help make people better people. If you look at the people who really push for prohibition, the WCTU in Canada and the United States, the Women Christians Temperance Union. So yeah, it was women's groups pushing for it, and they got together with Christian groups. And here's a very famous Christian who believed alcohol was contributing to people being sinful. And this guy was entertainment, really. He would go around before prohibition laws were passed. He would go around to these big stadiums, big public areas, and make these highly entertaining speeches. He'd jump around the stage and alcohol is the syrup of the devil, and I'm gonna fight alcohol until hell freezes over. And when hell freezes over, I'm gonna put on ice skates and I'm gonna keep on fighting. And he'd jump around. And this is before YouTube and Netflix, and people needed entertainment. They would pay money to listen to this guy. They'd be entertained by his theatrical performance, but ultimately they would be convinced that alcohol was leading people to be sinful and turning them to the devil. And so part of what got the laws to pass was a desire to make Christians better Christians. Okay? Now keep in mind, these in general, Catholics did not support prohibition. This is more of a Protestant type movement. Catholics do typically believe, like alcohol is a part of the Eucharist, right? The wine, and they didn't want to be denied the right to have wine during Mass. It was typically, the French Canadian Catholics around here, anyways, weren't big supporters of prohibition, and Catholics in the United States were less likely to support prohibition than Protestants in the United States. So we had and still have quite a few French Canadian people in the area, these descendants of French Canadians, and they disproportionately made up the people who ultimately broke prohibition laws. My great grandfather included. I'll take you on a little virtual field trip to my great grandfather's illegal bar he ran tomorrow. Okay, it's a true story. I'll tell you more tomorrow. Ultimately, as your research will show you, this didn't make people better people in general. It caused some people who weren't necessarily going to be criminals to become criminals because they were lured in by the money and opportunity. Right? Many women who probably would have never turned to a life of crime became rum runners. People started lying quite a bit, and lying's not very moral. Lying is like the opposite of being moral and virtuous. So people would, at the border, what's the purpose of your visit? Someone coming from the U.S. to Canada, and inevitably had people lie. I'm just going here on business. So a lot of times Americans were crossing the border to get Canadian alcohol, which was easier to get than American alcohol. I'll talk tomorrow about why it was easier to get Canadian alcohol. Anyway, so I'll let you get started on your own research. You can go into the assignments. It's called the essay, and it says essay. I don't need an introduction. I'm giving you your thesis. You just give me 3 supporting paragraphs using your sources. Okay, I'm going to set a deadline for Tuesday, and it gives you lots of time to go through your sources. I will continue my talk tomorrow about the local circumstances of prohibition. I'll even use Google Maps to take you on a little virtual field trip to some spots around Windsor and Essex County, my great grandfather's bar included. And yeah, so get started, but check in tomorrow, and there'll be some more information coming. Okay, have a good day. You can shut off the video now. I'm just trying to figure out how to stop the video. Oh, there we go. Okay, have a good day.